Halloween. We're almost there, we're at the end. And today I want to talk to you not only about one of my favorite horror movies of all time, but my favorite movie of all
I'm all right.
I don't think so.
There's something out there. It lives out in those woods. In the dark. Something that's come back from the dead. Groovy.
Hello, lover.
Son of a...
I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul.
Swallow this.
That's right. Today we're talking about Evil Dead 2. I love this movie so much. Let's talk about this movie first, and then I'll tell you why I love this movie so much. So, a young man named Ash takes his girlfriend Linda to a secluded cabin in the woods for a little fun time. There he finds a book bound in human flesh and inked in blood, a tape recorder from Professor Nomi, and decides to play the tape recorder. Horrific consequences. We soon find that their tape recorder, which is reciting the incantations and translations from the Book of the Dead, releases an evil force out there in the woods that possesses his girlfriend Linda and turns her into a deadite. Now Ash must defend himself and fight his girlfriend, who happens to bite him on his hand. And soon his hand goes bad, and he has to lop it off at the wrist with a chainsaw. Now he must battle his evil possessed hand. Poor Ash. Soon after, Professor Novi's daughter heads to the cabin to figure out why she hasn't heard from her father or her mother in a long time, and finds Ash and automatically assumes that he killed them. So her and her friends lock him up and put him in the basement, and soon find nothing is as what it seems. And now they must all fight to save their souls. Evil Dead 2. It is a sequel. It is not a remake of the first. We're going to talk to you about why that is in a little bit, but let's talk about the behind the scenes of this movie, because there's so much to talk about. During the scene where the severed head of Linda bites Ash's hand, Bruce Campbell tends to say the line, or he says the single line, "Work shed." Work shed. Sorry, I had to say it like he said it because it just doesn't make sense. The line was later redubbed in post-production due to the quality of the audio, giving a strange, slightly disproportionate sound of the audio. So he's like, work shed, which doesn't make any sense. 9 years later, while filming a small role in Escape from LA, the first thing Kurt Russell said to Bruce Campbell, he walks up to him and he says, "Hey, say work shed." Bruce Campbell states this in the commentary, and he said they got a good laugh out of it. Stephen King was such a fan of The Evil Dead that he convinced producer Dino De Laurentiis over dinner, who was producing Maximum Overdrive, which we talked about previously, to have his production company DEG, De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, finance Evil Dead 2, and it worked. Here's where I wanted to talk about. This is not a remake. Often considered to be a remake, it is not accurate. The rights to show scenes from the original could not be obtained to recap what happened. So the beginning was remade to explain how Ash got to the cabin and etc. So, Evil Dead is still in the continuity of this film. How it's so weird that you make Evil Dead and then you make a movie Evil Dead 2 but cannot get the rights to your first movie. I don't understand that. I do understand that, copyright and all that, but it's just so strange. Because even in the sequel to this, Army of Darkness, even though it contains scenes from Evil Dead 2, they still had to reshoot the beginning because they couldn't get the rights to Evil Dead 2, even though it contains scenes from Evil Dead 2, which doesn't make sense, but that's so weird. I don't... Oh, man. The producers insisted upon using different colors of blood to avoid an X rating. So there's black blood, green blood, yellow blood, really dark red blood, and lots of blood. It proved futile as the MPAA gave the film an X rating anyways, and they just decided to release it unrated, which it worked for them. Rosebud, the supposed film production company, was not a real institution. Producer Dino De Laurentiis was forbidden to release an unrated movie through his own company, so Rosebud was created specifically for the purpose of releasing Evil Dead 2. They created a fictional production company just to release this movie. The recap of Evil Dead includes a shot where the evil force runs through the cabin and rams Ash into Ash. When this shot was filmed, Bruce Campbell suffered a broken jaw when poor Sam Raimi, was operating the camera, crashed into him with a bike. Let me start this over. The recap of the original Evil Dead scenes includes a shot where the evil force runs through the cabin and rams into Ash. When this shot was filmed, Bruce Campbell suffered a broken jaw when Sam Raimi, who was operating the camera, crashed into him with a bicycle. Or so people were led to believe. This, in reality, was a story concocted by Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi as a gag to see how many people would actually believe it happened. Now, Sam Raimi is notorious for torturing Bruce Campbell. Notorious. Anytime there's a scene like when Ash is running through the woods in Army of Darkness and he's getting whipped with branches, that's Sam Raimi. When he's getting the shit beat out of him in Army of Darkness with the book, that's Sam Raimi. Whenever there's a chance for Sam Raimi to torture Bruce Campbell, he will jump on it and do it. So it would make total sense for people to believe that Sam just rammed right into Bruce on a bicycle. Most of this film was shot on a set built inside the Genarium of the J.R. Faison Jr. High School in Wadesboro, North Carolina. The original was filmed here in Michigan quite a bit, and I believe also in North Carolina. Sam Raimi credits Stephen King for making this sequel, as well as the popularity of the original Impossibles. Raimi couldn't acquire enough money to fund the film, so Stephen King made a few calls, since he was a huge fan of the original, and convinced financiers to give Raimi the money he needed for the sequel. And in the original film, there's a quote from Stephen King is the ultimate experience in grueling terror. Many scenes were deleted from the movie, according to official reports. All of them in our original version of the movie are lost. Some of these scenes are when Henrietta, Henrietta in her rocking chair while the professor reads the incantation. Too fast, reading that way too fast. That was a shout out to one of my favorite bloopers on the Ghost Stalkers bloopers from John Tenney. It's the first thing I thought of when I started reading too fast. Many scenes were deleted from the movie, and according to official reports, all of them and the original version of the movie are lost. Some of these scenes are when Henrietta is in her rocking chair while the professor reads the incantations. Her demonic eyes are unveiled in the cabin's light, showing that she has been possessed. Linda's severed head throwing up black bile on Ash when trapped in the vice, which is why black slime suddenly appears around her mouth in the final scene. Linda's severed head extending a long, snake-like tongue into Ash's mouth while in the rocking chair, which reportedly was deleted because Sam Raimi said it was some of the worst reverse acting he's ever seen from Bruce Campbell. Again, you can tell they're really good friends because they love to just rip on each other. An extended take of the blood flood with green and yellow blood, an extended sequence of the half-headed Ed running after characters and eventually is chopped into pieces, much like Shelley from the original Evil Dead. And then they would flop on the floor. Ash's demonic face morphing back to normal after taking his dead girlfriend's necklace. Fans of the movie did manage to find a very rare 36-minute work print of the film, which only has early versions of the opening and ending scenes and a few extra shots, including an old rare TV version of the movie, which many alternate and extended scenes. But unfortunately, this isn't included in any of the famous deleted scenes. And supposedly there's one out there where the possessed evil Ash finds a squirrel and eats the guts out of it, which is completely random and pretty funny. In the scene where whenever you see smoke coming out of Ash's chainsaw, it's actually tobacco smoke. Sam Raimi rigged a tubing to the back of the chainsaw, head off camera, and would smoke a cigarette and blow smoke through the tube to create the effect. The zombified Henrietta, who was one of the best characters in this film, was played by Sam Raimi's little brother, the famous Ted Raimi. And I love Ted Raimi, and he put up with a lot of abuse in this film. He was forced to wear an extremely heavy body latex suit with the addition of eye lenses and fake teeth. The only part of Ted's the audience can see is his tongue when his mouth is open. The shooting location of Wadesboro, North Carolina was going through a heat wave at the time, and a combination of this and a cumbersome suit made the production extremely difficult for Ted Raimi. He would quickly become overheated and profusely sweat in the suit. There's an actual scene in the film. Yes, there's an actual scene in the film where he turns his head to look at Professor Nobi's daughter, and you can see the sweat pour out of his ear. Gross, but it's a cool effect, and it looked cool. The special effects team would have to pour liters of sweat out of the suit into styrofoam cups at the end of the day. And there's a rumor that that the effects team somehow used the collected sweat in a horrendous prank on Ted on his last day in the suit. I hope that's not true, because, man, that would suck. I can imagine what they did. Poor Ted, he put up with a lot of abuse. The sexy, surly Bobby Joe character was inspired by Holly Hunter, who was a roommate of Sam Raimi in the early 80s, along with Joel Cohen and Frances McDormand. One particular incident inspired the character. Hunter was auditioning for a hooker and was unusually made up, wearing a sexy, short-skirted outfit. She became angry at Raimi when he somewhat leered at her. Raimi pulled for Hunter to play the part, but the producers wanted someone sexier. Sam Raimi's original idea for the sequel was to toss the character of Ash through a time portal to the Middle Ages. This ultimately became the plot of Army of Darkness, the third Evil Dead film. The scene where Ash is doused in blood coming from the wall was filmed by placing Bruce Campbell horizontally on the floor and then pouring gallons of fake blood on him from above. The scene was filmed with the camera turned 90 degrees to create the illusion that he was standing upright. So much blood was dumped on Campbell that not only did he feel like he was nearly drowning, he would also produce red snot for the next 2 weeks every time he blew his nose. To make matters worse, his insistence that authentic Caro syrup formula was used to simulate the blood made him a target for every fly in the neighborhood. And during the commentary, there's a little tidbit where he talks about with Sam. He says, "Hey, if I feel like I'm drowning, what do I do?" "Well, wave your arms." He says, "Okay, what do you want me to do in the scene?" He goes, "Wave your arms." He goes, "What if I drown?" He goes, "Well, it'll be a good scene." Oh man! Now you can tell. As a little tidbit of behind the scenes for myself, you can tell when I'm tired of writing a script because I will little. This is literally what it says: "Rave about movie, dumbass. Make it seem coherent." Oh man, thanks, past me. You're an asshole. So present me. Yes. Why do I love this movie so much? It's hilarious. It's scary. And it introduced me to Bruce Campbell. Even though I had been introduced to Bruce Campbell a long time ago. So, how did I get into the Evil Dead films? I started with Army of Darkness, not realizing it was part of a trilogy. So, of course, while listening to the commentary of Army of Darkness, I found out Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 were before this. So, of course, I went out and watched them. But also when I was younger, I would watch Xena and Hercules, and there was a character named Autolycus that I loved. He was the King of Thieves. There was another show, sci-fi western comedy called The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. I love that show. And there was another show called Jack of All Trades, where a American goes to Britain to help secure relations between British and America, and Napoleon and his assistants, I don't know what you would call them, his minions, let's say his minions, would constantly be trying to overthrow the British and all this, and Jack would have to take on the legendary title of the Daring Dragoon to stop them. And I loved those shows, and this was before I realized like who actors were and all that. And it was during Army of Darkness that I was like, that guy looks familiar. And that's when I started doing research into it, and I realized it was Bruce Campbell. And Bruce Campbell is like my favorite actor of all time. I love Bruce Campbell. I had the chance to meet him a few years ago, and I didn't get the chance to talk to him much, but I was so happy to meet him. It was a dream come true. I always wanted to meet Bruce Campbell, and finally at a convention in Chicago, I saw he was going to be there. I bought tickets. I worked a ton of overtime to pay for the hotel. I drove out there just to meet Bruce Campbell, and I had a blast. And it was one of my favorite days ever. Meeting Bruce was a dream come true. He has played so many of my favorite fictional characters: Ash, Briscoe County Jr., Autolycus. Such a great actor. Sam Axe from Burn Notice. I loved Burn Notice. When I found out he was going to be doing Burn Notice, I was like, okay, I'm only watching it for him. And I ended up loving the show, and I'm glad he's in every single episode because he's such a great character. And I thought for sure, I was like, you know what? Knowing my luck, they're going to kill him off after like the first season. Nope. He lasted all seasons. They even made a spin-off movie with him in it, which was awesome. Directed by Jeffrey Donovan, who played the main character in Burn Notice. Oh, I love that movie so much. And it was the introduction of Bruce Campbell, which is why I love the Evil Dead movies so much. Evil Dead 2 in particular, because there's a lot of Three Stooges gag elements to it. And it's funny. Like, High Fidelity explains it. So there's a scene in the movie High Fidelity with John Cusack and Jack Black where they talk about Evil Dead and rave about it. And it's true. It's scary. It's funny. It's awesome. Bruce Campbell makes these movies. Ash is one of the best fictional characters out there. He's a badass. He's a coward. He only fights to save himself. And he always seems to turn around and redeem himself no matter what. and he's played brilliantly by Bruce Campbell. There's no other Ash. I'm sorry, you cannot remake these movies. There was a remake. I enjoyed The Evil Dead, and I'm really glad that they didn't have a character named Ash. They had a different character, and I'm so glad that they weren't Ash, because Bruce Campbell is Ash. He's played him so many times between 3 movies, 3 seasons of a TV show, 3 video games, and even though he said he's retiring from the character, I hope he changes his mind and comes back, because Ash is one of the best characters ever. And I will always support Bruce. I'll always watch everything he's in. It doesn't matter if he's got a 30-second cameo. I'll watch it. Bruce Campbell is awesome. And Evil Dead 2, as much as Evil Dead and Army of Darkness are great films, this one is so much more fun to me. You've got demons, flying eyeballs, decapitations, memorable line, work shit, groovy. Come on, so much great stuff happens in this movie, including the most amazing weapon on film. After he cuts off his freaking hand, he attaches a chainsaw to it, and it becomes his hand. How badass is that? Love it. Watch Evil Dead 2. The direction, the casting, the score, the sound design, everything about this film is worth it. For gore hounds, you'll love the gore. For comedy fans, you'll love the comedy. And for Evil Dead fans, you know how much this movie is, how amazing this movie is. I mean, to Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, Ted Raimi, all the producers, everyone that worked on this movie, thank you. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I could watch it every week and not get tired of it. I love this movie so much. I love the characters. I love the direction. This movie made me love horror. If it wasn't for this movie and movies like Dawn of the Dead, I would not love horror as much as I do. I thank you all so much for watching. No, I mean I do, but not yet, because what do I give this movie? Come on, you know what's coming. I give it 5 groovies out of 5. You have to. One of the most memorable lines, one of the most memorable movies, and it's got to be a 5 out of 5. Now I thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate all the love and support I've been getting on these. Thank you so, so much. We truly live in a weird world. Sometimes dreams come true. You want to meet Bruce Campbell for 14, 15 years, and you finally do. We truly live in a weird world. Go out and experience it. See you in the next.